This place looks completely normal, but right here, 400 years ago, a battle was fought which not only decided the fate of Europe, but of the whole continent. On one side, we had Gustavus Adolphus, Swedish king and champion of the Protestant cause. On the other, Wallenstein, a businessman who had used the war to gain influence unseen for a man of his rank. When the men prepared for battle on this foggy November morning, they knew that today they would write history. Though 6,000 of them would not see the end of the day. At this point, the 30 Years' War had raged on for 15 years. Gustavus had entered the war 2 years earlier, and after defeating Tilly at Breitenfeld, he controlled nearly all of Germany. Soon he was cherished as the savior of the Protestant world. For the next year, he planned to march on Vienna, forcing the emperor to sue for peace. The Lion from the north had come to punish Emperor Ferdinand's violation of the religious peace. In a desperate move, the emperor decided to reinstall Wallenstein as leader of the Catholic army. Earlier, Wallenstein had been dismissed in fear of his growing influence. Wallenstein was an interesting character. Mysterious and interested in the occult, he remained a mystery for friends and foes alike. Already before Lützen, both generals had met at Alte Weste near Nuremberg, but the battle ended in a stalemate. Wallenstein decided to retreat into his winter quarter in Saxony, but Gustavus followed him. To the luck of Wallenstein, a commander of his light cavalry remained behind because he had fallen in love with a tavern maid. Here he discovered Gustavus' forces and was able to warn his master. Desperately, Wallenstein recalled his forces from their winter quarter. A letter to Pappenheim ends with Cito, Cito, Citissime, Cito. Fast, fast, the fastest, fast. The battle began right here at around 11 AM with a Swedish cavalry charge aimed at Wallenstein's left wing. The light cavalry was soon beaten back, but to Wallenstein's luck, Pappenheim arrived just in time to stabilize the front. Though the famous general died during the first attack when he was hit by a cannonball. This success allowed Swedish forces to cross the road to Leipzig and even capture some of the imperial artillery guns, which were now turned around and used against its former owners. Only on the left, the Swedish attack bogged down and was even beaten back. Wallenstein personally led a charge that threatened to annihilate the Swedish left wing. As a consequence, the center too was forced to retreat. At around 12 AM, the commander of the Swedish left wing sent a desperate plea for help to Gustavus, stating that if he doesn't receive reinforcements, he will not be able to hold his ground any longer. Around 1 PM, Gustavus decides to leave his successful right wing. Though due to the fog, it is quite impossible to navigate on the battlefield. Gustavus soon finds himself alone, isolated from his men. At this point, the visibility on the battlefield had heavily degraded. Not only had the fog grown thicker, the town of Lützen had also caught fire. Together with the smoke of the black powder, it created a thick layer that made it impossible to see more than the man standing next to you. Till today, Swedish people speak of Lützen weather when there is heavy fog. Around 2 PM, the Swedish king made a fatal mistake. As he tried to reorganize his center, he found himself alone, facing an imperial cavalry charge. The king was soon overwhelmed and killed. The death of Gustavus was announced to his men by his horse, who returned to the Swedish lines. Not far from Gustavus' death, another tragedy occurred. The Swedish blue and yellow brigades were advancing again, two elite formations of the Swedish army. However, due to the weather, they had lost connection to the right wing, leaving them vulnerable to cavalry attacks. Maybe due to their training, or maybe also because they were angry about the death of their king, they did not abandon their position. In the next minutes, around 50% of them would fall victim to the enemy cavalry. Their remains were later buried in a mass grave now located on the side of the battlefield. Especially horrifying is the last one, that was laid in a position resembling Jesus Christ on the cross. Now something impressive happened. Usually you would expect the Protestant side to falter. Their king and unifying symbol was dead. But in fact, this did not happen. The following wrath gave them strength to continue their attacks. They were even able to advance past Lützen and capture the imperial guns that had caused so much damage to their lines. This move prevented the imperial cavalry from continuing its attacks in the center. However, now the battle had become a stalemate. The fighting continued till the end of the day, but no side was able to gain an advantage. In the evening, the leaders sat in their camp, unsure what to do next. Both sides were exhausted and unable to continue the fight on the next day. It was Wallenstein who lost his nerves first. During the night, he ordered his men to abandon the battlefield and return to Prague. This made the Protestants the winner of the battle, as they had contested the battlefield. This move would doom Wallenstein. His return to imperial territory was seen as treachery, because now the emperor had to supply and feed his own men. This, and rumors that Wallenstein was attempting to switch sides, would culminate in the murder of the great Generalissimo in 1633. It would be fair to say that at the end, everyone lost this battle. Without Gustavus and Wallenstein, no one was left who could have ended the 30 Years' War. Gustavus by military means in 1633, and Wallenstein, who wanted to pressure the emperor into seeking terms with his Protestant vassals. Without them, Europe was trapped in a never-ending circle of violence.